Howard Lindzen is the founder and general partner at Social Leverage. All opinions expressed by Howard and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Social Leverage or StockTwits. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for decisions. Guests may maintain positions and securities discussed in this podcast.
Hey everybody, I'm back with another episode of Linzanity. Today a good friend, Chris Richardson, local here in Arizona, and he's Deputy CIO. He's been deputized to be the CIO of Arizona State University, my alma mater. So I'm excited to talk to him, and he's a great entrepreneur as well. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Today on Linzanity, I've got Chris Richardson. What's up, Chris?
How you doing? Good to see you.
That's a bold clothing selection for a podcast. My daughter barely woke up to do this. So I'm doing double podcast today, so you're first of a double header, and welcome. So everybody, Chris is the deputy. This is cool because I'm an ASU MBA grad and Thunderbird graduate, which we've talked about a lot. But Chris is deputy CIO at Arizona State University. So welcome.
Thank you.
Tell me what that means, deputy CIO, because ASU's, and then let's get into the school a little bit because it's my alma mater, and I didn't know how big it had become. So tell me a little bit about it.
Sure. In regards to the role,
Yeah.
IT is just becoming such an important part of every organization, and that's definitely recognized at Arizona State University. So we have actually a few deputy CIOs. We're the leadership team for what's about a 650-person IT organization. And if you look beyond just what's centralized in our University Technology Office, we have about 1 in 13 ASU employees is tied to an IT job code. So there's a lot to do as we digitize our world and make ASU as scalable as possible.
So how do you apply or know about, or how does this role look like? How do they hire for this, and how were you recruited?
Interesting. So oddly, I just ran into the former CIO at a networking event.
Okay.
And I had the opportunity of doing something almost 20 years ago now that kind of changed CRM for higher ed at the time. It was a company called Talisma. It was venture-backed by a gentleman that was Excel product owner of version 2.0 at Microsoft, had done a ton of work at Microsoft. And
Were you in Seattle? Or?
I was in Seattle area
Okay.
at the time. And he had this company called Talisma. It was doing
I've heard of
offshore outsourcing, super
Sure.
high growth. They were supporting all of the
Public company?
they never went public, but they saw that the companies serving CRM for service were poor, and so they built their own.
It's pre-Salesforce.
Yeah, pre-Salesforce. There were 3 hired clients at the time. He said, hey, I think this is a vertical. So he hired me as a vertical markets manager. I went out and visited all 3, and we built the product. I aligned the sales team to it, and next thing you knew, we had over 20% global market share.
And so you meet the guy, and what's the day-to-day of a deputy CIO?
Well, so I just met him, and that Talisma resonated because 2 years before I joined, it had finally been removed. And then he kind of looked at my background, 12 years at Honeywell, had done a ton across infrastructure and operations and scale, and so I could bring some bring some new life to the development team there and kind of fill in for some big shoes. So day in life of my role, we run all of our enterprise applications. So the ERP systems, the Salesforce systems, we're the world's largest deploy of nonprofit education on Salesforce.
Wow.
We run
ASU is?
ASU, yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty wild. A third of our staff has a Salesforce license, which is amazing.
Wow.
We're doing a lot on the platform.
Has Benioff ever come to the school?
He is not, but we
Should I make a call?
are opening doors. If you know him well, sure. I'm sure Dr. Crow would love.
We'll crank call him.
All
All right, give me a phone. He answers his phone. We'll call him right now. All right, we'll work that.
He's aware of us. I ran into him at Dreamforce, and he knows who ASU is. We're doing a lot with his .org group, which
We are
was
the
just acquired
Harvard
by
of the
.com.
West. Just I want to put that out there.
Number 1 innovation 4 years in a row. I would say that's a
We're
different brand than Harvard.
We're the good Harvard, not the Wall Street criminal type. We're the sand between our toes, Harvard-esque people. So keep going.
Yeah, so we also have a few hundred applications that we've built the code for ourselves, and that's where things get really interesting. Now that we're migrating what we have, our platform, primarily to Amazon Web Services on the cloud, we're starting to refactor things, and we're building some of our own scalable, completely productized units.
Would you give that away to other schools or charge?
We've looked into potentially productizing, and we're exploring what options we have currently.
Uh-huh. And where's everybody housed? All the engineer? Where's the department housed? On campus?
So yeah, we Google actually about 10 years ago started an entity here, and for whatever reason didn't work out. And we took over that location. It's just south of Apache on Rural Road.
So why would you think? I never heard that story. So
it was early on in Crow's era. I think now you start looking. I mean, Amazon is building a huge presence. You look at all the companies they're starting.
Is Google
to come.
in Tempe or Arizona?
That I'm not sure of.
But Amazon's here.
Oh yeah, big time. And
Intel's here.
Intel's got a major presence.
And so let's talk about the school. That Michael Crow. How do you know him? And people don't know, but he's built. I mean, ASU is like one of the largest employers probably in Arizona. I don't even know. Like, how big is the school now?
I want to say the last figures I saw was over 114,000 students.
Yearly?
Yeah.
Or attending right now?
Yeah.
Compared to U of A, amateur school, what's that?
Wouldn't say an amateur school. Obviously, they have a different focus.
It's shit.
But
my daughter goes there. Oh, and my son, for the moment.
No, I mean, I think you look at our growth trajectory, and we kind of know where we're headed, and our online division's growing fast. That's almost 40,000 students there alone. So unique partnerships are helping drive the growth. Mm-hmm. But even what we call campus immersion is growing. We've got multiple locations. I mean, Thunderbird, where you went, is now moving downtown. I think that's going to be really fascinating.
They're moving it off the campus.
Yeah.
I always felt that was a little bit. That was like they were selling it as that, but I don't know.
Yeah. So that's we consolidate with our law school and our
near the Cronkite place,
right near Cronkite too.
That's smart.
Yeah. So we're just leveraging, we find strategic ways to build niches that become pretty strong, and then and then solve real world problems. I would say that's part of the approach.
And so you've got a lot of entrepreneurial freedom.
I mean, within reason. It's not like we can just go out and start whatever we want, but we can identify problems within and definitely solve for our own needs. I mean, that's what's fascinating. So we have distributed groups that have their own IT capabilities too. Sometimes they leverage tools we have. Sometimes they completely build their own. Sometimes they use third partners. One thing you might not be aware, we actually have a conference that ASU sponsors. It's called ASU GSV. We just had our 10th anniversary of it. 5,000 paid attendees. It's about a third K-12 and higher ed leaders, about a third ed tech startups, and about a third kind of private equity and venture capital community. It's held in San Diego every year, and it's just fascinating. We draw the likes of, we had Tony Blair speak. We've had Bill Gates keynote. We just had a really interesting conversation with Karl Rove and James Carville on the same stage, talking about the.
But why
the
San Diego? Just to recruit, like
it's bigger than our hotels can hold. I mean, we had it here for a while, and it just. I'm not sure the strategic reason, but it's just
so interesting. You would think Phoenix at the size they can't serve. You got to go to San Diego, a small town. That's so interesting.
Well, I think there's even a broader community. There's quite a few folks that go that don't even pay to. Right. There's all sorts of stuff that happens. So it fills the entire Hyatt Grand Manchester.
So I found, we were talking the other day. I found fascinating about, because when I went to ASU. It was, I think, probably maybe 40,000. Maybe I don't think U of A was bigger, but I think ASU was kind of like Mill Ave was tiny. Now it's like P.F. Chang's and condos. But when I went, it was like sand volleyball and beer, and then they opened ASU Karsten, which was, I thought, like probably the greatest golf facility for a college. And obviously we had great players here, from Billy Mayfair to Phil Mickelson. I mean, so many great players. So we had this on-campus golf course, and it was a Pete Dye golf course. And so that was my memory, because I never went to class. That's what I did. I played golf. And
worked out right for you.
It worked okay. But Well, that's where we got business done. There was like 8 of us from the MBA school, and all we did was gamble and play golf and watch dust storms come across the SRP land. Now now the course officially closed last week, I think.
If it hasn't closed, I don't know the exact date it's closing, but it's
prime real estate.
It's close.
Yeah. And so tell me what's going on with that. This is the coolest thing.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. So we've realized that as funding sources have changed over time,
the Saudis aren't helping.
Well, just this state, 2008 was not a good time for state funding, and we saw about half of our income from the state decrease pretty overnight. And so we just got pretty creative about how to fund certain things, and so. Part of it is growing our revenue, right? So getting more students, making sure that the equation there is going to work. But I think by releasing that land and starting to attract the best of what research in the world wants to come with the best of the research that ASU can offer, and start to attract jobs, which means our students have new outcomes. And really deploy the land. I mean, do we really need that many golf courses in the state of in the Maricopa Valley, Maricopa County, excuse me? And so it's really a new build. It's 335 acres. It's massive.
Yeah, and it wasn't a huge golf course. It was very creatively designed. It was donated, I think, by SRP, and I remember writing the business plan for it. Which included a lot of free golf because I wrote the plan. And this is back in 89. So 300 acres, unbelievable location, like right over the bridge. And so what? How long will it take, and what are they building for real? You're calling it a smart city, but what does that really mean?
Well, it's called the Novus Innovation Corridor. And
who's
Novus is a brand that we've come up with our partners.
ASU owns that, or part of it.
It's unique, so it's a unique series of partnerships. We do have a piece of it in our ASU Enterprise Partners has a play, but there's a group called Catellus that's the build out group, and then there's partners and how they make it happen. But again, it's figuring out how to leverage our place in society and get the most out of what's available that has the biggest impact. Around ASU, but as well as for the environment, meaning I'm sure the city of Tempe's loving it. I'm sure the state of Arizona loves it because tremendous amount of opportunity.
You serve 1,000 people a day, maybe. Whereas as a city, as like a innovation hub, you can serve millions of people.
Yeah, when we spoke, you weren't aware of SkySong, and that was kind of a very small micro experiment.
SkySong's a little north?
Just a little north. It's in Scottsdale, and it started with one building that quickly sold out. Then it was 3 buildings. They're building the 5th building now, and they've got complete demand on the 5th building, so 6 and 7 will go up, and it'll finish the product. And so that's just a mini example of what's possible. And if you look at the types of companies they're almost predominantly technology. That's where our innovative Ed Plus unit, which is our online division that does a lot of the creative partnerships with Starbucks and Uber. But I mean, you look there, amazing tech companies are going there. Then they scale out. They're looking for bigger space too. Like that's why Novus is such an opportunity.
And so if I think about AS, because first of all, as I went there, and I loved the hokiness of it at the time, from Chuck Wagon to just the simplicity of ASU, hot weather, not known for its school. I mean, I don't care. I couldn't have gotten into Ivy League, and I wouldn't have gone either way because I'm not Ivy League material. I was more a desert rat. But when I think of it today, until I met you and got back into it, I had moved away for 10 years. And my kids, Rachel and Max, tried to get into California schools. Rachel wanted to come to U of A because she's got, 9 or 10 cousins and my wife went to U of A, and the whole family went to U of A. And I go down to visit U of A now thinking, when I went to ASU, it was like, even though I wasn't I was a grad student, I wasn't really into college, life. I mean, we laughed at U of A. But now that I've gone down to U of A and spent some time there, it's a cool place. So there is competition. And I would say if I was a student today, I understand the appeal of Tucson because it's like campus life. It's like you don't have the city to distract.
Right.
And so how is it? how's it grown that fast in that type of environment? Well, how is it, like, it's being all things to all people, or how do you think ASU's been able to, like, just become its own city?
Well, that's a really complicated question. There's a lot of parts, and so hopefully I can kind of
just ramble
piece this together, because Dr. Crow came here about 16, 17 years ago now, and I think one of the interesting things, if you think about the most successful enterprises, we call ourselves a strategic knowledge enterprise. You look at the most successful enterprises, they are geared around what? Their customer.
Yeah.
I would argue that still today, the majority of universities are geared around faculty. That is
Good
their
point.
customer.
Yeah, because I was going to get to that at the end, but let's go with it.
And so you start thinking about, all right, well, how do you really redesign and don't get me wrong, faculty is the core of the knowledge, but it's really who you're serving that's the most critical piece. If you want to align the value proposition to get the biggest bang for the buck for those that are going to pay for,
and to me that means getting them a job.
Right. Exactly. And so you look at how we defined ourselves. We first of all looked at the model, and we call ourselves. It's funny you referenced Harvard earlier. We have a very different charter. It's focused on inclusion as opposed to privilege and exclusion. You look at all the rankings, which is driving the behavior of all the big universities to get on the rankings.
We talked about this. Good point.
Yeah, it's about exclusivity. And what do? They publish how many people that applied and how few got in. And so, then you got these scandals where people buying the house of one of the members of a sports team.
No one has to bribe anybody to get into ASU.
No, there's a set standard, and then you get in, and there's all sorts of ways to make the economy work. But it's not just that. There was jokes that we're a degree mill. We're further from that. You look at top 10 in employability in the nation by the likes of the people that are hiring our students. So we started to create these unique and interdisciplinary models. So we have entrepreneurship and innovation tied into almost all of our major schools. So there's an overarching umbrella of what we call E&I means to ASU, but then all the schools have unique ways of how that's expressed, and all of them have, they try to promote startup culture within each of these schools, and so you have all these entrepreneurs right now. At the same time, you have this interdisciplinary approach. We know that not everyone's going to be an entrepreneur right out of the gate either, and so you look at how, say, for example, we've got our sports focus is combined with law, which is combined with business. And so you create this interdisciplinary approach, and you find that you can create your own niche, and you're golden, right? Yeah. And so you look at this, part of going downtown, right? That's where we built our law school there. So instead of having it remote, it's now packed.
Law school is now downtown. And journalism's downtown.
Journalism's
right
downtown. And
then Thunderbird would be downtown.
Thunderbird right downtown.
Are they keeping the Thunderbird brand?
They are, yeah. But so back to your question of why is it successful? It's just a mix of all this stuff, and our research is another strong arm. If you look at the universities across the nation, very few are improving their position of where they sit in relative terms of how much research they're raising. Whereas ASU, we're on a trajectory. We've doubled our research every 5 years. We're on a trajectory to be the largest research school in the nation that doesn't have a medical school, meaning we will likely surpass MIT in the near future. And very few can say that. And you think about those dollars come. People get involved. We just launched a deal with Blue Origin where our students are going to be building payloads for their transportation. That's just another day in life.
So you're not part of that group that forgetting the debt crisis for a minute, because I have a whole thing about that. And we'll get off. We'll just ramble a little bit at the end. But, with homeschooling and with online education, is there ever a discussion that, like, the university as we know it just kind of disappears and the buildings go away? Like, I haven't talked to my kids that much about it, but, like, I just think it's crazy that kids have this much debt getting out of college.
It's definitely possible. Oh, for sure. If you look at Clayton Christensen, which any of us that went to formal business school have heard about, he has been calling the end of the university at scale. Like 50% would go out of business, what he says. Now, we're not looking at it that way. We're taking matters in our own hands. And in fact, Dr. Crow just made a pact with the Arizona Board of Regents that we won't raise tuition by more than...
What is it? I think when I went in the 80s, it was about $8,000, maybe $1,700, maybe between $4,000 and $8,000 for the whole kit and caboodle.
I should have boned up on this. For in-state, it's about, I want to say it's about 12-ish thousand. That's it. And the average student only pays per year about $1,800. If my memory serves, it's actually amazing.
That's incredible.
Amazing deal. We've kept
you'll
tremendous
survive.
pressure. We're doing great, and and I read somewhere that
these California schools, it's ungodly.
There's a lot of maintenance that they have to cover. And
the trial is putting these parents on trial, and I'm not against that. They broke the law, but the school needs to go on trial. The school system in California needs to go on trial. It's a joke.
I'm not necessarily saying agreeing with that, but what I do look in a broad sense, faculty-driven schools that don't have a plan for keeping their resources up, and worse. Like I read recently that 73% of our nation's universities missed their enrollment numbers. And yet, at the same time, the ones that they're attracting, they're deflating the cost of the tuition as well. So it's this double whammy. You just wonder how sustainable it is. I mean, we have a AAA debt rating with Moody's, which is pretty amazing. So, to your point, I think ASU's in a good position.
Yeah, they're in a good spot. I was, my beef is always like me. Why? Like they're so good at marketing. ASU, obviously, I've been back and I see it's ASU, but as any institution, they're not doing a good job with their own customers, which is people like me, 20 years out of college, 30 years out of college.
I think one
we're
thing
the
in
success stories, meaning I'm not saying ASU was a great part of my life. I don't know. I'm trying to think if it really launched my career, but it's where I got my MBA, and it's like we have stories to tell to the school. So I've been bugging you about that too, and that's like any organization.
And we've got you coming.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
But
it's like any organization where you're so focused on.
Well, the data gets lost over time. It's hard. It's
really
hard.
amazing.
It's hard. Sometimes
that's really what
sometimes
it is.
but as well, one of the things Dr. Crow addresses in the last leadership meeting, going back to the exclusivity part, and I don't relate as much because I haven't grown up in higher education. It's not my ethos, although I do think what we're doing at ASU is amazing. The point being is that a lot of the disconnect that the universities, not just ASU, which I would argue is getting is kind of changing this. A lot of the disconnect is created by the industry itself. So, when you focus too much on the exclusivity, and when you start to lose the way of how to build these really unique partnerships with the businesses, and most importantly, tie to the students and then their parents and then the broader community. Mm-hmm. What you find is in times like today, people are questioning, all right, well, is it worth it? Well, I would argue the jobs that are coming up today, when you don't even know what they are, you mm-hmm. have to have methods to get the right knowledge and to get the right skill set. Mm-hmm. And while ASU still is working a lot on the on how to bring this to bridge, we're calling it the universal learner model. We realize that producing a undergraduate after they just come out of high school,
mm-hmm.
That's not the end of learning. I mean, learning you should be doing all the time. If you're any industry or any individual, if you're not continually learning, eventually you're going to hit a peak.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to solve that problem, and it's not one that's an easy equation.
And what do you think the number one, if you're a person out there and you're considering ASU, forgetting the weather and the fact that it's beautiful here, what is ASU's big marketing push? Is it that it's not like Harvard? Is it like we accept anybody? Is it inclusive, or is it a specific undergrad that's popular at ASU?
Oh my gosh. I mean, we kind of market that you can do anything, and you can. I mean, okay. and
so it's not journalism. It's not.
But they're all there. I mean, it's we don't do what's traditional. The traditional, like, it's not around history. It's not around necessarily. We have plenty of biology. It's not around English. It's around interdisciplinary application of learning, and really creating your own path. And then we have resources all over the place that can help that out. I mean, we let undergrads work with our research department. It's like it's interest-driven, continual learning, create your own path. And I mean, companies love it. If they choose to pursue entrepreneurial activities, immediately out of school or later, I mean, they just build a tremendous amount of success and knowledge and take it from there.
How old are you?
I'm 46.
Where did you go to school?
So I'm sure that some of my friends are going to hate this. I mean, I went to University of Washington for undergrad, and I went to University of Arizona for my MBA.
Cool.
And it's funny how you tell these messages.
Did your MBA there?
I did. And
how'd you end up here for school?
You mean working here?
No, from school. Well, for school.
When the .com industry blew up, I decided to go back to MBA, and that's how I ended up down in Tucson. I was just my aunt.
Had you ever been there?
Oh yeah, my aunts lived there forever.
Did you like it?
I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Very different place now, though. Like,
yeah.
And back to your question.
Pokey. I don't like it, but I get it.
I realized I didn't really answer your question when you were talking about the college feel versus the urban feel. I think that's actually going to be something that's going to be really important for ASU going forward too.
Oh yeah.
All the jobs are in the urban lands right now.
That's a marketing pitch.
Huge.
I would have hated it. Saying, "Oh, Howard, you got to go." Well, first of all, there was no Uber, but Howard, you got one class downtown, and you have the rest of your classes in Tempe. Like that just. I don't want to go to a school that's that big.
Well, you can work while you're going to school. A ton of our kids work while they're going to school.
I guess he's ahead of the curve here.
I mean, I want to say, I think we have a staff and faculty of about 16,000.
Yeah.
I believe we have 20,000 students that are working at us.
I basically think kids shouldn't be stressing. I think if you're paying for school, that should include, it's like a kibbutz, that should include real good help, and that's what they could use people like me, like people in the network. It should include an internship. I mean, these kids need to be working.
And again, we kind of need them to know what they want. It's not like we just say, "Hey."
How would they know what they want at that age?
Well, they start exploring, right? Mm-hmm. And we have people that help bring that out of them. And then there's options all over the place. So we just need people to kind of take some initiative, and that's the type we're attracting. I mean, when you brand innovation. That gears towards people that want to be change agents, that want to be makers, that want to be doers, right?
Yeah, what got me interested is a bunch of kids from the business school just tracked me down. So I got mad at you. I'm like, why isn't the dean calling me? Why are the students finding me locally? And I get it. Like you said, it's data. She's got her, the dean's got her job, and their last thing is worrying about which alumni are.
Oh, once I told her the story, she understood completely.
They hit me up fast. But what I found fascinating, because I was clueless at that age, even though I had an MBA, is you'd go into a room, I don't know, the recruitment room, and there would be stuff on a pin board, for an Intel job, and that's how I knew about jobs.
But those were the ways that
those were the
found
ways.
It. And it's like,
and now it's like they're reading my blog and they're hitting me up for coffee and they're driving up from Tempe to sit with me, and I go, well, if they're smart enough to figure that out, then I can refer them into the network.
But that's what I mean. That's what I mean by the drive and the initiative, right? And so we're trying to cultivate that so they can find that for anyone.
No, I'm really proud that kids from ASU are like, to me, that's just I would call it, if they're smart enough to figure that shit out, then they're welcome to be in the network. Now, obviously, I gotta curate them and see how smart they are. But I've been pretty impressed with the quality of the people that I'm seeing.
Yeah, we have incredible talent,
ASU.
and it ranges across all board. I mean, you think about it, like I'm blessed. I have about 25 student workers just in our IT development team, and these guys and gals, they get to build stuff that's in production that they contributed to directly. I mean, I had a team build a LoRa network themselves. They had to consult to someone that was doing research in Italy because it wasn't working the right way, and then we deployed all this IoT stuff on that LoRa network that they created. And I mean, our School of Engineering is over 26,000 students alone. I mean, that's bigger than the entire school of MIT, entire Georgia Tech.
Is ASU one of the biggest? Is 114K like a big school?
Centrally managed, I think we're the largest in the nation.
Okay, so that's good context. And give me another big school. Michigan?
I mean, you think of like Texas, University of Texas. But again, each unit there has a different president, different team. So that's why it's not the UT system. The UC system would be way bigger than us, but we're centrally managed.
So I'll wrap it up with you. You have your own startup, so you and your wife. So tell me a little bit about that. if you can.
Yeah, so she was in commercial real estate for a while, and then 2008 was not kind to commercial real estate, and
I
and
saw
so
them jump.
yeah, so she was kind of soul searching, and she found her way into a fix and flipper, and he wanted her to be a designated broker. She took the test and failed, and I was like, well, why don't you pass it and let's start our own.
Right.
So we started flipping in 2010, and then we kind of saw the writing on the wall. We were doing like 10 to 15 a month for quite some time, and had a pool of investors. But you just could see that making 60% cash on cash in 3 months was going to not last forever. So we kind of turned that into more of a traditional real estate brokerage and branded it more kind of tech forward. And yeah, it's grown.
What's the name of the company?
It's called True Realty, TRU.
TRU Realty.
Yeah.
Is it a broker or is it? Yeah, it's a full broker.
So we are a tech-enabled residential real estate brokerage, and we've recently launched True Commercial, which is a kind of a we can do commercial buy and sell and lease. We also have a True Wholesale division. One of our partners started. So it's grown and it's broad. And
how many people are you?
We have 120 licensed agents as part of the True.
And it's just Arizona?
Currently, yeah.
And your wife is the CEO?
She's CEO and founder, yeah.
CEO of your house, too. How many kids do you have?
We have 2.
And do you like the real estate business?
Oh, we love it, yeah.
No, but you specifically, you're a bit of a geek.
Oh, I think it's fascinating. I like to, I can't remember. I think it was from Rich Dad, Poor Dad way back when. He talked about these 4 areas that you want in your life to make sure you're in control. It's it's salary, it's the business that you own, it's investments that generate income, and then it's the markets that can generate income. And so I feel with real estate, and especially owning the company, we get kind of 2 of those quadrants. And so, yeah, I think real estate's amazing. We don't flip as much anymore just because we put a lot of money into the company. And we're starting to see now with scale that's starting to pay off. But we've accrued some rental properties over time, too.
And do you invest outside of that, or is this everything in your company?
My grandfather got me investing. I started when I was 13.
And
6 weeks before the 87 crash was my first stock purchase.
It's a good lesson.
It was a great lesson.
Remember what you bought?
ExxonMobil.
ExxonMobil?
Well, at the time it was Exxon.
And, it worked out fine.
Held it until about 4 years ago.
And is there are you a tech stock person, or are you
that's
S&P
what
indexing?
I know better. Yeah.
Or do you index?
Well, through mutual funds, through the 401k, it's been indexed. But personally, the money I put to use is tech stocks.
Is there anything that I'm missing, do you think? Or if you have a question for me, you can do it, and then we'll just wrap it up.
Oh, well, one thing that we haven't talked about that I'm really passionate about is kind of the industry of smart cities.
Yeah.
And
so we started. Okay.
So we did with the Novus side, but I think there's a lot more going on there. If you think of the assets that ASU can bring forward, one of our schools started what's called the Smart Cities and Regions initiative. It's a whole schools for smart cities and regions, and they just recently signed a consortium with Maricopa Association of Governments, Institute for Digital Progress, and the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. And that is a way to bring the community of suppliers together with our cities to test what's possible. And in some cases, we'll actually experiment with what's possible in the ASU environment in a very limited way that won't, expose any privacy or anything. And then depending on how it works, we can roll it out to the cities together and then roll it out to the region together. Because I think a lot of the smart city industry is creating this unique kind of silo approach, right? You get this one smart city. Well, what happens when you live in a different city, or you go to dine in a different city, or you work in a different? And so, I just think that the network fabric between the cities will be such a strategic advantage for the Maricopa County as we get our act together. We've also recently launched the ASU Smart City Cloud Innovation Center, and it's powered by Amazon Web Services. We've put some physical space in SkySong, and AWS funded a few resources as part of that, one of which we're really excited about. He starts next week. He was part of the 100 Resilient Cities Initiative funded by the Rockefeller Foundation and Social Capital. And he just has a tremendous amount of knowledge. And it's funny, the reason why he said he was coming is just we have such a unique advantage here in Arizona, especially Maricopa County. We've got the governor that wants to see innovation happen. We've got the Arizona Commerce Authority that's working with the government to create these sandboxes, right? FinTech sandbox. We've got blockchain sandbox, cybersecurity sandbox, autonomy vehicles. You go down the list. Then we've got the Greater Phoenix Economic Council that's attracting companies. They've coined the connected place. Then we have a place like ASU that can bring people together with our research, with our students, with the team that I'm applying smart cities to our campus. And I mean, when you can create this collective, especially for something that's complex, I like to say that smart cities, the reason why it's not moving faster is there's just too many variables. And you look at the old ways cities are organized, their technology capabilities. A lot of the startups, they might have the best things. It's like, but it's hard to get into that environment and hard to change. And so it's really a tectonic shift that needs to happen. So.
And how long will that take?
Oh, I mean, it's one of those things.
It's ongoing.
Yeah, and it's more of a mindset. It's not like, it's not like, hey, you do these 10 things and you're a smart city. It's, you kind of have to recreate and within, but yet it's not like you're going to get a bunch of money to go do it in a huge overhaul. So you have to kind of be smart about the approach, and you kind of find ways to do it, and then you find new interfaces that engage your citizen. You find new data sets you could never knew, and then you find machine learning to mine it and bring out new services. But I mean, a lot of those capabilities don't exist at cities today.
All right. Well, fascinating. I mean, I think ASU is on a good path. It's great to see people so passionate about the alma mater, and I'm glad I met you through Matt Murphy, I think.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt, for the connection.
So, Matt, and also like a real estate geek venture capitalist.
Yeah.
So he's doing well. So it's good to close the loop on this, and thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me. What's going on at ASU is legit, so I appreciate being here.
All right.